For the Cincinnati Bengals, I just want this much in perspective. The reason they have Joe Burrow is because they were nightmarishly bad. This wasn't a, wow, they really nailed the Burrow pick. Not like they saw something in Burrow nobody else did, like the Bills and Josh Allen, or the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, or even the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Joe Burrow had set all of those records at LSU, won that national championship, and everybody knew he was the number one pick in the draft. And because the Bengals were so bad, they got him. The Bengals were 2-14 the year they drafted Joe Burrow. And then last year, were 4-11-1. In the last 2 seasons, the Bengals have won 6 games prior to this season. 4-11-1, and then the next year in the Super Bowl. That right there is Joe Burrow's effect. Jamar Chase is wonderful. Zach Taylor might be a good coach, kind of hard to tell. The defense is improved. Clearly their kicker is phenomenal, McPherson. But at the end of the day, this is power of mindset. Joe Burrow was not going to be a loser. And so he demands everyone around him to be a winner.
3rd down and goal. The ball just inside the Kansas City 3. Shotgun snap to Burrow. Throws it into the end zone for Chase. He leaps. Yeah, he's got it. Touchdown. Bengals with 14 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up. It is good. Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. That is unbelievable.
I wouldn't call it surreal.
Or is it?
I wouldn't call it surreal. I would say it's exciting. You know, I think if you would have told me before the season that we'd be going to the Super Bowl, I probably would have called you crazy. But then, you know, we played a whole season. You know, nothing surprises me now. I know the kind of guys that we have and the team that we have.
I love this dude. I absolutely love this dude. That is Dave Lapham, Dan Horde, the long-tenured and often pained and tortured broadcast team of the Cincinnati Bengals. And you can hear their joy and, of course, the joy of Cincinnati fans all across Southern Ohio and the state of Ohio and Kentucky and all of the places that Bengals fans have been tortured for many, many years. Joe Burrow walks this amazing line. And Mahomes has this too. But Joe Burrow walks this line of acting like a big shot, but it not coming off as arrogant. It coming off as totally natural and not a turnoff. He shows up to this game wearing this ridiculous, huge, puffy jacket. I mean, it's just ridiculous. He wears the most ridiculous glasses to last week's post-game press conference. He has a big jeweled necklace hanging from his neck yesterday after the game. He has that ridiculous spike hair look that almost looks like Macaulay Culkin from a black and white video with Michael Jackson. The whole thing by Joe Burrow could absolutely be a turnoff. Like, who does this guy think he is? And where does he get off? And yet you listen to him talk and you watch him play, and it's mesmerizing. And you can't help but appreciate and applaud this guy. It's not an arrogance. It's a confidence, but it's not a bragginess. Yesterday, he's asked about that gold chain, that diamond chain. And the reporter says, are those real diamonds? I mean, it's this big, huge, gaudy diamond chain around his neck after a playoff win. I mean, it's so tacky in so many ways. And he's asked, are those real? And Joe Burrow says, Yeah, they're real diamonds. I mean, I make so much money that they really can't be fake. And again, you're like, that's the perfect answer there. I don't know how else you could answer that question. It's gaudy and ridiculous that he's wearing this, and yet I make so much money that they've got to be real diamonds. You're like, I love that guy. Joe Burrow, and I can't stress this enough. I'm willing to hear out your other candidates on this. Who has ever walked into a franchise and changed them so dramatically? Maybe LeBron with the old Cavaliers in 03, 04 when he's a rookie and they're nothing. But, LeBron also felt very young at that time. Burrow walked into the NFL almost as a grown man at 24 years old because of red shirts and because of the transfer and because of the injuries. In the NFL, one guy doesn't completely change losers to winners overnight. Don't say Tom Brady, because Tom Brady didn't change the Patriots. The Patriots were contenders with Drew Bledsoe. They had gone to the Super Bowl a couple of years earlier. They had an elite veteran defense. They had future Hall of Famers on their defense. That was a defense ready to win right away. Bruschi and Ty Law and all of those guys, Vince Wilfork, go down the list. That was a great defense right off the bat for Brady to inherit. Peyton Manning, maybe a little bit. That Peyton Manning got to the Colts and they were garbage, and then he kind of immediately turned them around. But it took him 5 years, 6 years, 7 years to get to the Super Bowl. It was 7 years before he got as far as Joe Burrow is in 2. I mean, this is extraordinary. Maybe Elway with the Broncos in 83 and 84. But he just turned a complete laughingstock loser. Like the Colts, yes, they were bad the year that they got Peyton Manning. That's why they got Peyton Manning at number 1. And they were bad his rookie season 3-13. But they had just been in the AFC Championship game 3 years before they drafted him in 95 or 94. They had just been in the playoffs, and, they were fine. They were good. They were not great. The Bengals have been garbaggio. And even when they were good enough to make the playoffs, it was a punchline. They couldn't win a playoff game. They hadn't won a playoff game in 31 years, and now they're in the Super Bowl. I just think yesterday they're down 21-3, and the only reason they stay in that game is because Joe Burrow just kind of refuses to let them not think that they belong. And Burrow's answer there is this surreal that you're in the Super Bowl? No. Maybe before the season I would have said you're crazy, but once we were playing in the season, I saw how good we were. That's also kind of like the perfect answer, because what that does is it doesn't sound delusional, like Joe Burrow always knew they were going to go to the Super Bowl this year, but also authentically gives the locker room validation for how good they are. It's this perfect balance of being realistic, but also being optimistic. It's just such a hard balance to strike. But here's Joe Burrow saying, yeah, look, coming off of 4-11, I didn't think we were going to the Super Bowl. But that we're here now, it's not crazy. It's the perfect balance. I don't know how he's doing this at such a young age, and I guess he's not that young. He's 25. But these are balances to strike that veterans don't get. That guys that are in their 30s or 40s don't ever strike. He's not arrogant, but he certainly has confidence. He's not delusional, but he certainly has what could appear to be unrealistic belief. But he says, as we started playing football, as we started going through the season, I saw what we were made of. And this isn't that crazy. And that team doesn't believe this is crazy, even though, by the way, it freaking is. And I wish I could curse on these airwaves because it's that crazy. I was sitting there yesterday watching this game. The Bourbon Bell is on the couch, and I just couldn't stop going, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. The Bengals are in the Super Bowl? The Bengals? And yes, if you're in the playoffs, of course, there's a path for you to get there. And beating the Titans isn't that crazy because the Titans clearly were limited. But the Bengals went from 2-14 and 4-11 to in the Super Bowl. And we won't ever say again that the Bengals can't win a playoff game because Joe Burrow is going to be there for the rest of the decade. They've already done it. They've shattered all of the preconceived notions. They took a sledgehammer in 1 January and obliterated 60 years of football reputation, certainly 30. I mean, it's insane that they did this. Oh, and how did they do it? They came back from down 21-3 against Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs on the road in the playoffs at Arrowhead. You know, I've got friends in Kansas City who were at that game sending me video of 21-3, and it's a party, and it's a coronation, and it's the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl to finish what they started last year, and this is going to be 3 consecutive Super Bowls and 2 rings in 3 years, and it's a party. The Lamar Hunt Trophy handed to the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. 21-3. And Joe Burrow just doesn't allow you to believe you don't belong. We belong. We're supposed to be here. We're good enough. We'll get it. We'll figure it out. I don't know how you can describe how dramatic this thing is. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how you could describe it. Because the other thing is this is not a one-off magical season. Back in '88 with the Bengals, it ended up being a one-off magical season. It all kind of came together. For one wonderful year, Boomer was at his absolute apex. Ickey Woods was basically a one-year wonder. For 1 year, it was impossible to win at Riverfront. Nobody could go there. They were a 1 seed. The teams that they beat in the playoffs weren't great. They beat the Seahawks in the divisional round. They beat a Bills team that was before they became the Bills. It was the earliest taste of the playoffs for that Bills team. They weren't quite there. They didn't have Thurman Thomas yet. They get to a Super Bowl. They give the Niners a run. That Niners team was really up and down that year. Bill Walsh retires after the game because he was exhausted. That's kind of a one-off crazy Bengals season, '88. They were good in those years. They were never great, though. How can you not think the Bengals are going to be a contender in the AFC for the next decade? It's impossible not to believe that now. That Burrow walked in and just, again, smashed to smithereens preconceived notions and did it in 2 years. Oh, and by the way, just if anybody needed a reminder, he blew out his ACL 13 months ago. At the end of November last year, Thanksgiving, he ripped his ACL. Usually, that's a year's recovery. Usually. That would have brought him back for December of this year. Joe Burrow came back for training camp. He played in the preseason. Oh, yeah, week 1 under center. Played a 17-game schedule. Won the division. In a division with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Big Ben of the Steelers. Baker and the Browns. Won the division. No big deal. Oh, and then beat the 1 seed on the road in overtime. Oh, and then went to Arrowhead and came back from down 21-3. And, Bengals were in their first Super Bowl in 31 years. No biggie. Like, what? What just happened? We just woke up and this happened in football? Awesome. The Rams, it's like they're putting the pieces together. They hire McVay. They've got Aaron Donald. They've got to acquire Matt Stafford because they're not good enough a quarterback. They got to develop Cooper Kupp over the last couple of years. They got to bring in Von Miller, trade for Jalen Ramsey, final piece, bring in Odell, final piece. Sony Michel, final piece, looking for the final piece. Year after year, they're kind of building up to this playoff team. They can't get over the hump, though. They lose the Super Bowl. They're finally here. They've kind of grinded through those steps. The Bengals were a 4-win team last year. Oh, and they're in the Super Bowl. What?